Hey, what's going on, guys? I'm going to tell you today about the American Revolution, why it was justified. The reason is because it's it's about to be 4th of July. It's July 2nd. In 2 days will be July 4th. America's Independence Day. And the reason the American Revolution was justified is because the American colonists at the time, they were being taxed. And yes, they were being taxed because of the war debts from the French and Indian War, and the British did protect the American colonists in the French and Indian War, okay? The British were also trying to enforce the Proclamation Act of 1763, which largely forbade colonist settlements west of the Mississippi River and west of the Appalachian Mountains. Okay, that was designed to protect Native Americans on their land, and I can see why that was justified by the British. However, it wasn't the fact that the British government was doing a lot of bad things to the colonists. They weren't. In Britain, they were taxed 12 times higher for the war debt than the colonists were. And that's what they'll tell you in England and Canada to this day. And they're respectable with it, but they say, I love America, I love Americans. But when the American Revolution happened, America was being a bunch of whiny babies because we were taxed 12 times higher. Which that wasn't the case. We weren't being whiny babies. They were taxed 12 times higher. But the bottom line was all this was going on, and the U.S. did not have any representation in Parliament. The American colonists had no representation in Parliament, and King George basically said America must obey. King George III did not learn to read and write until he was about 10 or 11. He never listened to somebody else's viewpoint, and even when he learned to write at ages 10 and 11, it was a childlike writing. So King George III was in some ways a dictator, okay? And also England passed the Declaratory Act of 1766, 10 years before the U.S. declared their independence. And basically the Declaratory Act, England basically said they could do whatever they wanted to with the American colonies for better or for worse. And that is why the Americans wanted to be independent. And that's why the Americans, not really by and large, there were a lot of indifference towards independence, but not the vast majority, but the majority of Americans wanted to be independent. So they should have been independent because the majority of the American colonists wanted to be independent because the UK was having taxation without representation, and they also passed the Declaratory Act. And the Declaratory Act basically made the colonists subservient to the British. So they didn't have any representation in Parliament. And that was the whole ordeal. That's why it's called taxation without representation. That's why to this day, territories like Puerto Rico, the U.S. Virgin Islands, American Samoa, they don't pay federal income taxes because that's a large part of America's heritage. And the UK basically made the colonists only purchase their tea from the East India Company, British East India Tea Company. And there was a 3-cent tax on tea, which the colonists had no say-so over. That's why you had the Boston Tea Party. And Sam Adams, who led the Boston Tea Party, said that only target the tea. We're not targeting British soldiers. We're not targeting British or loyalist civilians. And they dumped the tea in the harbor. So that is why the American Revolution is justified. I love the UK, love Canada, but I think they're wrong on this issue. I think the 4th of July is a great day, and America should be proud of its independence. Anyway, hope everybody's doing well. Take care. God bless, and bye-bye. Bye-bye.